Hello, my name is Bearhead. We're introducing a new cooking program for public television. It's called Cooking with the Colonel, meaning Colonel Doug Allard, who is a gourmet chef unknown to me for quite a few years, but he's quite good at his art, and he will be showing you how to cook deer, elk, commodities, whatever you have. He's quite good at it, and we hope you'll enjoy the program.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another segment of Cooking with the Colonel. Today we're going to make a simple one-dish meal that's very popular here on the Flathead Indian Reservation. Some people call it Flathead Goulash, and kids just call it Indian macaroni. It's a very simple dish. We're going to use deer hamburger. This is a little white-tailed buck that Bearhead shot about a month ago. And we had a little suet put into the hamburger so we could get a little fat in there, because the deer meat is actually so lean that you have to add something to it. Before I get started, I'm going to put my macaroni into the boiling water, and we'll cook that for about 15 minutes. I'll put the timer on that, so put it for 16 minutes, should be done by then. When you cook the macaroni, you have to stir it every now and then just so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. This is a very simple one-dish meal, and I have added some things to it that most people don't use. I put some garlic in it, and I put some chili powder, and I think that gives it a little better flavor. But the first thing we use, and the first thing I use in nearly everything I cook, is onion. And we'll dice up the onion here a little bit, throw her in the frying pan here in a minute, along with some celery, some garlic, little chili powder, little salt and pepper, some tomato sauce, some tomatoes. Mix that with the macaroni, and we'll give that to the old Bearhead and see if he likes it. He's a meat and potatoes guy. I don't know if really he's a macaroni guy or not, but it's not a fancy dish, but it is a good dish, I think, at any rate. Turn the stove on there. Put a little oil in here. This is what the deer meat looks like when it comes from the butcher. He's mixed some suet in here because the deer is so lean that you have to add something to it. And let me remind you once again that when your hunter goes out for deer meat, have him take good care of the meat. This meat was cleaned on the spot. Bearhead gutted the deer out immediately. We put a stick in the deer's carcass so that it would cool. We then took it to the butcher. He hung it, skinned it, hung it for 4, 5, 6 days before he cut it up. One of these days we're going to take you down to where we get our meat butchered and show you how the butcher does, what he does with the meat, because they handle it very carefully. They cut it, wrap it, package it. This particular butcher uses foil, or not foil, but saran wrap around everything before he puts the wrap on it, the white meat wrap, and marks it big game. So they take good care of the meat, and if you take care of it, your hunter takes good care of the meat, you'll find that it always comes out better, and you don't get a lot of wild flavor. If you don't skin the deer pretty soon, and you don't gut it out clean, and clean the inside out and let it cool good, you're going to get some wild flavor that somebody in your family may not like. Our oil is just about hot now, so we'll throw our onions and celery in there. I could use, and many times do, regular garlic cloves, but today, and most times, it's just a lot easier to use the processed garlic, which is all ready to go. All you have to do is throw it in there. We're going to saute that for a little while here, if I can find a spatula. We're going to saute this till we get the onions and the celery just kind of soft and yellow. Have to check the macaroni, scrape it off the bottom because it will stick to the bottom of the pan. And if it sticks for very long, it'll burn, and that even if it doesn't burn, that piece that sticks down there gets real hard on one side, isn't very appetizing. You want to cook the macaroni what they call al dente, which is not real done. The worst thing you can do to macaroni is to get it overdone. If you cook macaroni overdone, it ends up getting mushy, loses its shape and consistency, and doesn't really taste very good. Although it's edible, it's kind of turns mushy.
How about throwing that al dente by us again here? What's that?
Bearhead thought al dente was an Italian gambler down here in Missoula, but al dente is actually a way of cooking pasta so that it's just not quite done. And then when you're mixing it with something, it actually cooks a little bit more. That, you got al dente down pat there now, Bearhead?
I'm gonna have to wear my bib and tucker the next time we do the show.
Al dente, listen to that guy. We're doing our garlic and our onion and our celery here. I always, when I'm sauteing something, I stir it just about all the time. I'll let it sit for a few minutes, but I like to keep it moving around there. You get a little more even saute on it, and it seems to cook a little bit better. I kind of like watching it, see how it's doing and how it's looking. Sometimes if I got a little piece of onion that's in there too big, I'll use the end of the spatula and cut it. The garlic, if you use garlic right, people won't really taste a strong flavor of garlic. Bearhead, for example, doesn't like garlic very good, but I've put garlic in nearly everything I've ever cooked for him, and if you don't have it too strong, it does add a wonderful flavor to all kinds of dishes. Come back and stir our macaroni again here. This is a one-dish meal that you can make at home in about 30 minutes altogether. That's what we're going to try to do today, is do it in about 30 minutes. And that includes cooking your macaroni, all the rest of the vegetables that we're doing here. Now we got these a little softened. Pardon me. Now we're going to throw the hamburger in here. And the way I do it, I just take my fingers, break it up a little bit as you put it in. This recipe calls for 1 pound of deer or elk hamburger, but actually from the butcher here, this is probably about 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds, something like that package. It doesn't make really any difference if you use a little more or a little less, because the covering on it, the stuff you're sauteing it with, will just be a little weaker in flavor then. If you use more hamburger, I use regular macaroni. The recipe calls for 1 pound. I use 20 ounces today. Also, this dish is a very flexible dish. You can put a lot of things in this as your taste buds dictate. I've put canned corn in here. One time I had some leftover beef stew, and I sauteed that up with my onions and celery and stuff. And this is a flexible dish. This is the way most people on the reservation here make it, with the exception of the garlic and the chili powder, which are two of my favorite seasonings. But this is kind of what it looks like as you're cooking it. We're going to cook this now until the hamburger turns brown, Then we're going to put our tomatoes and the rest of the stuff in here. And this is the point where I like to add some salt and pepper. A lot of people don't use salt and pepper until the product is finished and ready to put on the table, or they let the people do it. But once again, I like the taste of pepper, and the salt gives it a little flavor. And I think it gives it a little more flavor if you cook it with it. I don't know if that's true or not because I never do it any other way, but it always tastes good to me when I'm through. You have to just keep sauteing your vegetables here and your hamburger until the hamburger is all browned. And about the time the hamburger is browned, throw the rest of the tomatoes in, heat it up a little bit, mix it with the macaroni, see how Bearhead likes it. If your family doesn't like deer meat, the taste of deer meat very good, this is really a good dish to give them because you're really disguising the taste of deer meat here with the onion, garlic, celery, chili powder, salt, and pepper, and then you're overlaying it with the taste of tomato sauce and tomatoes. And if you can't get all the deer flavor out of there with that, you got a pretty strong deer. And so I think it's a good way to cook the deer meat.
What if you like deer to begin with? I like deer better than beef or pork.
A lot of people do. We have a lot of our Indian people here especially who just like deer meat. They make this dish without any seasoning. They just put salt and pepper, meat and macaroni because they don't want to disguise that taste or eliminate the taste of the deer meat. And if you like that, you can make it that way too. I'm going to put my chili powder in now, and I'm using a little different kind of chili powder than Bearhead is used to. This is stone ground New Mexico red chilies, and it calls for a couple of teaspoons full, and
in this case, a couple of fingers.
That's about this. As you'll notice on here, you buy this at little stands in New Mexico, and this says hot. So whether it's that hot or not remains to be seen. But we're going to throw her in there right now, and I like to have that simmer in there with the meat and the vegetables. And also too, it seems to impart a little more of that chili flavor if you do it while you're cooking it rather than wait until the end to put it in when it doesn't seem to mix in quite as good to me. Now, as you can see here, this is getting to be just about to the brown stage. We're just about ready to put in our tomatoes, tomato sauce, and let it simmer for a little while. We got about 4 minutes to go on our macaroni there. So about the time this is done, our macaroni will be done. Have to have a chance to sit there for a few minutes. Then we'll put the macaroni back in the pot, pour this whole concoction in with it, and see where we're at from there. If you want to change this recipe and add other things, this is the time where you do that. If you wanted to put in a can of corn right now or some canned mushrooms, this would be the time to do it. You don't want to put it in when you saute your onions and your garlic and celery, because then your corn, which is canned, and your mushrooms, which are canned, both get overcooked. So if you're going to add anything to it besides the ingredients that we have, and you can put virtually anything in there, if you want to add anything to it, this is the time to do it right now. Just as the same time you put the tomato sauce. Okay, now we're going to pour the tomato sauce in here. I like to mix each ingredient that I add. I like to mix it up as I go rather than dump it all in a big glob. I'm going to put the tomato sauce. I'm going to put a can of, these particular ones are Italian recipe stewed tomatoes. You could use any kind of tomatoes in this. You can use any kind of macaroni. I've used various kinds of pasta in this. It's not too good with noodles. It doesn't taste too good with noodles, but with macaroni of any kind, it'll come out just the same. We're using some shells this morning, but you can use elbow macaroni. Any kind of macaroni will do it. Now we're going to let this sit and simmer for a little while we're checking on our pasta here to see how we're doing with it. I'm not really a good judge of when pasta is done. I always have my wife come and taste the pasta to see if it's done, because I don't really have a good knack for doing that. Oh, it's not quite done yet. Got a little sticking on the bottom there, so I had a rubber tool there. We'll take the spatula and scrape her off. As this is cooking, I like to get a spoon, taste it, see if it has enough salt and pepper, chili powder, etc. Tastes good to me. I might throw a little more pepper in there. And that chili powder that I put in there hasn't made it too hot, but I can taste the effects. You can taste it in there. We'll let this bubble a little bit. Take my macaroni, which should be just about done right now. Pour it in a colander over here in the sink. I think our hamburger mixture here is cooked just about as long as it needs to. So we're going to retrieve our macaroni, put it back in the pot. I put a little oil in that macaroni when I let it sit there, just drizzle a little oil over it. And that keeps your macaroni from sticking together. Also, I put a little in the pot when I was cooking it, and that actually keeps it from boiling over. If you're close to the top, the macaroni, the oil will keep it from boiling over. Now, what I'm going to do, if I'm lucky, is just transfer this to this, like that. Take my spatula here. Mix it all up. I like to let it sit for a minute or two so those flavors have a chance to absorb into the macaroni. Mix it up good so that all your liquid down there in the bottom. If you have more liquid than you like, I have a little more liquid than I like in this one. And generally what I would do is put that back on the burner for a little while. You can put it on here. This one I don't have on, it's just still warm, but put it back on the burner and keep stirring it for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and you can absorb most of that liquid into the macaroni. But right now we have a finished product for Mr. Bearhead. So we're going to give him a little shot of it here and see how he likes it. Now I'm going to give him something that he never ate on goulash before. We're going to put a little dollop of sour cream on this. I know he'll say, sour cream? What do you put sour cream on it for?
Because we used to feed that to the pigs when I was a kid. Now they got us eating it.
Because I like sour cream on it.
Well, I don't.
And we're going to see how he likes it. There you go, Mr. Head. Try that.
Well, first I'm going to try the without sour cream. Now, this is an easy 10 because it's one of my favorite dishes.
He didn't even taste it, and he gave me a 10 before I had to beg for a 9.
One of my favorite dishes. One of the things I like about it is the added. I don't use chili. I'm going to start using chili peppers in it. Well, that gives it a little.
You like that chili flavor in there?
He uses enough garlic so you don't taste. I don't like garlic, and you use enough garlic. I guess the way you're supposed to use it is so that it adds flavor and you don't taste the garlic. For that portion of the meal, you got a 9 or a 10.
Taste it with a little sour cream. You'll probably give me an 11 now with the sour cream.
With a little sour cream. That is different.
Encouraging, encouraging.
That's different.
Man is developing new taste buds he didn't even know he
Don't
had.
get carried away that far.
Well, you said, and that's better than you usually say.
If I were a guest in someone's home and they put this on my plate, I would eat it. In my own home, I wouldn't use sour cream. Ergo, a 9. So I'm going to give you a 10 for the straight macaroni and the straight goulash, a 9 for that part with the sour cream, for technical merit. For artistic presentation, Douglas.
Oh, I forgot your bread.
You forgot my bread?
Don't give me a grade here before I give you the bread.
No.
There's your bread. It's got to come up.
Artistic presentation now is he had to get the bread late, no butter. There's no decorative, like parsley on the plate.
The butter's covered up.
Okay.
The butter's covered up by the TV camera. Sorry, Bearhead. You don't get any butter.
So there's no parsley. There's no decoration. No tablecloth.
This is a simple meal.
We're trying to elevate the people's eating habits, not only by food but by character and presentation. That if you eat good-looking food, then everything is good-looking. So that's what we're trying to do.
Next time I'll get you some parsley.
Artistic presentation, I'm going to have to give him an 8.
Well, an 8, a 9, and a 10 for all that good food. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for today. Thank you very much for watching again another segment of Cooking with the Colonel. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Now can I have some of that homemade butter? I'll eat mountain lion, but I ain't eating no skunk, and
I got 3 or 4 guys out looking for me a skunk.
And I ain't eating it.
I found a recipe in an old lady's cookbook from down in Utah. I collect cookbooks. I buy cookbooks, and found this recipe for skunk. And by God, I'm going to cook it for Bearhead if I can just get one of these days.
By God, I'm not going to eat it.
How do you make it? What's the recipe?
I don't remember exactly what it said.
Catching me, no God. Not unless I'm hungry. And I got to be awful hungry. Charlie Russell, in one of his books, talked about these two cowboys that were lost out in a blizzard, and they hadn't eaten for a couple of days, and they come along this Blackfeet Indian camp, and all they had was dog. He said, "You'd be surprised how good dog tastes when you're hungry."